Hello and welcome back to SQL 101. My name's Matt Tanner, and if you've been following along with the series so far, you'll know that we learned how to select, filter, and sort data in SQL. Now in today's lesson, we're going to go a step further and start to look at how to use the group by clause. Using group by, you can group various rows together that have the same values and make them into summary rows. This is going to be really helpful when you want to do stuff like counting, summing, or averaging data. By the end of this video, you're going to know how to group data and perform calculations across multiple rows using group by and aggregate functions. With the agenda set, let's get started. Now, if you've been following along so far, you'll know that we've been doing all of these lessons within the SingleStore cloud platform. If you don't have an account set up yet, you can go back to the first lesson and set up everything from scratch, or you can click the link in the description, which is going to allow you to sign up for a free trial so that you can follow along with this tutorial. Once you've signed up and created a workspace, you can then come over to Data Studio. If you don't have a SQL editor created, you can click Open SQL Editor. I've already got one created here, and you'll see that we have the query still here from the last tutorial that we did. But today, we're going to be going over the group by clause. Now, the group by clause is used to group rows that share a common value in one or more columns. So after grouping, you can apply aggregate functions like count, sum, or average to perform those calculations in each group. Now, the basic syntax of a group by looks like this, where just like our other select statements, we have select column 1. We may have some type of aggregate function here, such as count, sum, or average. The table we're going to grab that data from, and then we have group by, and then we'll say how we're going to group that data. So the result from this query really is that column 1 is the column that we're going to be grouping by, and the aggregate function, the second piece of our select statement here, is the calculation we want to perform on each group. The best way to explain this is to show you some more in-depth examples. So let's start with a simple example where we want to know how many employees work in each department. For this, we'll use the count function along with the group by. So here we can see that we have the department ID. Then we have our group by, which is also by the department ID. So let's highlight this and then run this query. Now we can see that department 1 has 1 employee, department 3 has 3 employees, department 4, 1 employee, department 2 has 1 employee. Just to show you what that would look like without this, let's get rid of the group by and get rid of the count and just run this base statement. Here is where that data is coming from. So we can see department 3 has 3 entries and the rest have 1 entry. Now if I bring my statement back here, you can see how that gets calculated. So this is a great way to count the overall number of employees in each department. This allows us to summarize that data across these various categories, which would be the department ID. Next, let's calculate the total salary for each department using the sum function. That query is going to look like this. Department ID in our select, then sum of salary as total salary from employees, and again, we're going to group by department ID. So this will give us the total amount of spend that that department has in terms of salary. Let's run this. And here we can see department 1, total salary of $65,000, department 3, a total salary of $255,000, 4, $72,000, and department 2 is $70,000. Our result here really allows us to see how much is being spent on salaries per department. Let's look at a third example. And this is going to take it a step further and calculate the average salary in each department. And we're going to use the average function for this. That query is going to look like this here, where you see select department ID, average salary as average salary from employees, and then we group by the department ID. Similar to what we did before, except now we're using the average function. If I run this, we can now see the average salary per department. So using the group by with these various functions makes it easy to calculate statistics for different categories. You can also group by more than one column. For example, let's say we want to group employees by both department ID and their hire date year. If I want to do that, I can then bring in this type of query. We'll use the year function to extract the year from the hire date and group by both columns. So we can see here that we have, again, select department ID. Then we use the year function as hire year, and then count star as hires from employees. And then we're going to group by first the department ID and then the hire date year. Now I'll run this. And in this query, we count the number of employees hired each year in each department. Now with the limited data set we have here, it's kind of hard to see larger numbers or trends, but we can see here that Department 1 in the year of 2021 hired 1 person. Department 3, which we have 3 entries here, we can see the years that they hired in. So this is useful when we want to break down data into more detailed categories. One thing to keep in mind when using group by is that every column in the select statement must either be in the group by clause or used in an aggregate function. So for example, if you try to select a column that isn't grouped or aggregated, you're going to get an error. So always make sure to include either the grouped columns or calculations in your select statement. Luckily, with SingleStore and other databases such as MySQL, there's a more lenient way of enforcing this rule. And SingleStore and these platforms have an optimization called loose grouping or functional dependency. So we can run queries like this where we have a select and our group by contains a field that's not in our select, and we're still going to get an output from it. So as long as the columns we are selecting are still functionally dependent on the columns in the group by, this is still going to work for us. Now in stricter SQL systems like Postgres or Oracle, this query likely will fail. And the tip that I gave you just a moment ago will be applicable there. So this is just something to keep in mind as you begin to use the group by clause. And that covers the basics of how you use the group by clause to group and aggregate data within your data set. Whether you're counting, summing, or averaging data, group by is going to allow you to do these things. As you noticed, it can really help you to easily summarize your data across different categories. In our next tutorial, we'll build even further on our SQL knowledge by going over the having clause. So if you want to dig further into SQL, stay tuned for that. And as per usual, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss further lessons within our SQL 101 series. As always, thanks for watching and happy querying.